You know that voice in your head, the one that's kind of narrating everything you do? Well, today we're going to dig into one of the biggest questions we can possibly ask ourselves.
So where does that constant feeling of me actually come from? You know, that inner narrator who's always there saying, I think, I feel, I want. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how our minds build this identity, piece by tiny piece.
All right, so to understand the I, we actually have to start with what comes before it. Let's begin with the silent foundation for every single one of our experiences, this thing called the field of awareness.
Imagine pure awareness is just like the space inside a room. I mean, the room itself doesn't care if it's full of happy people or sad people, right? It just provides the space for them to be. Awareness is exactly like that. It's this open, silent presence where all our thoughts, our feelings, and sensations can appear. It's totally neutral. It has no identity of its own. And this right here, this leads to a really crucial distinction. On one hand, you have the field, which is awareness itself, the context, the space. And then you have the content, all the thoughts, emotions, and memories that are constantly popping up inside that field. It's so important to get this. The field is not the content, and the content is not the field. Here's a really powerful way to think about it. Awareness is like a huge open sky. Our thoughts and our feelings, they're just clouds passing through. You know, some are light and fluffy, some are dark and stormy. But no matter what happens, the sky itself is always there, completely unchanged and untouched by the weather of the mind.
Okay, so we've got our sky. Now let's look at the very first cloud that appears. Just a single, isolated thought. So when one single thought appears in that vast awareness, it's just a flicker, a blip. It's just a momentary event. It is nowhere near enough to build an entire identity on. It's just a ripple on the water. It's here 1 second and gone the next.
So why isn't one thought enough? Well, think about it. To have an I, you need a story. You need some kind of continuity. A single thought just floating there has no past and no future. There's no narrative to attach it to, no reference point to say, hey, that's me. It's just an impulse, totally on its own. So this is the big question, isn't it? If that huge open awareness isn't the ego, and one little thought isn't the ego, then where on earth does the I actually come from? What's the missing piece here? Well, the answer lies in a very specific mental process. It's like an engine of identity that's always running in the background. We're going to call it the I maker. And it's a surprisingly simple, almost mechanical process. First, a thought appears. Then, maybe a second later, another thought appears. But then, and here's the magic trick, a mental function jumps in, links them together, and basically claims ownership. It declares, these thoughts, they're mine. And in that one moment, the ego is born. This process actually has a name in ancient philosophy, Ahamkara, which literally means the I maker. Now, it's really important to understand this isn't a thing, it's a function. Its whole job is to take the raw data of our thoughts and feelings and weave them into a personal story, creating that feeling of me and mine. And here's where things get absolutely fascinating. This ancient idea, it lines up almost perfectly with modern neuroscience. The core functions of this I maker, linking thoughts, building stories, creating an identity, they pretty much mirror what scientists call the brain's default mode network. That's the exact network that lights up when we're thinking about ourselves, remembering our past, or planning our future.
So, a natural question pops up, right? If it's related to a brain network, does that mean the I maker is some physical thing you can actually find in the brain?
The answer is no. And think of it this way. Vision isn't the eyeball itself. It's a function that the eyeball supports. It's the same thing here. The I maker is a mental function that uses the brain's hardware, like memory and pattern recognition. The brain gives it the tools. The I maker function just uses those tools to build the story of you.
Okay, so let's take this a step further with a little thought experiment. What happens if awareness delivers the exact same thought impulse to two totally different people? Do they experience the same I?
The answer is a definite no, because the I maker personalizes absolutely everything. It runs that same initial thought through a completely unique filter, a filter made of your specific memories, your beliefs, your emotions, and your conditioning. So even if the initial spark is the same, the story that gets built around it becomes entirely, uniquely yours.
So why are we breaking all this down?
Why does understanding this little mechanical process actually matter? Well, because when you start to see the I as a process, instead of a solid thing, that's where some real freedom can begin.
So let's just put it all together one more time. The whole process looks like this. It starts with a silent field of awareness. Then, within it, thoughts just spontaneously arise. The I maker function then links those thoughts together, claims them, and builds a personal narrative, the story of me. And this ongoing story, that's what we experience as our ego.
And this brings us to the most powerful takeaway of this entire explainer. The I you think you are isn't some permanent, solid thing. It's a story, a beautiful, complex, and constantly updating story that your mind is telling itself, about itself. You are the sky, not the clouds.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty fascinating question. If the I is just a story the mind is telling, then who or what is the one listening to it? Thanks for joining me on this exploration.